from the oldest city in the USA, St. Augustine Tonight, with our guests, Caren Goldman, Mary Hubley, and your host, Jorge Rivera.
Oh yeah, November 8th, you know, all those turkeys are sweating it out. It's November 8th, we're getting closer, that lovely meal. Thank you everybody once again. This is our last show here at the distillery. We're really going to miss this venue. We want to thank Mr. Philip McDaniel for allowing us to do our show here. It's been great. Thank you once again to him and the distillery and everyone else that's been so kind in his staff, bringing us chairs, helping us out with everything we need. It's wonderful, wonderful. As you know, everybody, I think the applause was nice and strong because you all must have been getting your iPhone 10. As you know, the iPhone 10 came out, the anniversary phone as they call it. It does face recognition, and believe it or not, this phone, people actually camped outside in the streets to get it. And it seems that by January probably, Apple will be a $1 trillion company. This is like, yes, they're going to be one of the largest companies on the planet at over $1 trillion worth. And that is amazing. On phones, iPads, iMacs, it's incredible. The loyalists among the Apple consumers. Another thing in the news that I saw that was very interesting was Waymo. Waymo is that car that Google has been working on. It's an automated car that will take you from point A to point B with no driver. They are starting their tests with the public next month in Phoenix. They're going to take a couple of routes. At the beginning, they're going to have someone sit with you just so you don't freak out and jump out of the car. And then they hope that a couple of weeks into the test, it'll just be you and the car. And this is starting a whole revolution, not only of electric cars and automated cars and cars that drive themselves, but it's also starting a revolution in cars that fly. That's the next thing that's really big. Dyson, the people who do the vacuum cleaner, they're getting into electric cars, they just announced. They also said that they were going to do their cars were not only going to last, the battery was going to last double the time of whoever's up there on top, but they were going to do double the range. So the big boys are Tesla right now. Also, Tesla built a beautiful solar farm for Puerto Rico, for one of the hospitals. It's great. They plugged it in. And I've never seen so many Latinos with so many big smiles on their face. They're really happy, and this was something Tesla gave them. Google is also giving the island these floating balloons that replace the phone towers. So people can actually use their cell phones if they're in a certain radius. And I actually talked to my cousin who lives up in the mountains of Puerto Rico, and he was able to talk to me, and he said, "We're using that Google balloon tower thing." And I said, wow, you sound very clear. And so we talked for a while. If you saw the movie Back to the Future, you remember there was a DeLorean. Well, now the nephew of DeLorean is just finished building a sky car, a flying car. It is beautiful. There's about 4 or 5 flying cars out there that are in production, but they're really, really ugly. This one looks like a piece of art, and it has the shape of an F1 car, Formula car. It's all electric. It does 120 miles range, and the security system is amazing. It can fold the wings on it, but it looks like something out of the future, something out of Star Wars. And that car will go into production next month, I believe. And it's coming, ladies and gentlemen. Also, there's another product out there called Alley. It's a what they call an upstart company in England. And what they're doing is they're going to compete against the Echo, the HomePod, the Google Home. Theirs looks like a small little tire with a hole in the middle, and it moves, and it talks to you, and it has a camera, and it follows you, and it learns from your body language, and it knows if you're a funny guy, it'll crack jokes. I saw the demo on it, and it was amazing. And so they hope to make something that not only can talk to you, but can also see you and see things. And you might say, do you know where my car keys are? I think they're right behind you, hanging on the door by the fridge there. Oh, okay. So it's very interesting, this new thing. If you're into art, Abu Dhabi just opens this weekend the Louvre, their version of the Louvre. It's beautiful. These people have money, okay? There's no detail. They started with 600 works of art, mostly half of them the French. They have from France. They have Van Gogh. They have Monet. They have a bunch of incredible artists. It's going to have like 26 individual galleries within the museum itself. And they say it is state-of-the-art, interactive, all sorts of things. And that is this weekend. So today is what? Wednesday. You still got time to fly to Abu Dhabi and get a ticket to go into the Louvre of Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi Louvre. Yes. Another big thing in the news I heard was Swift. Swift is a software that banks have where they actually transfer literally every day trillions of dollars between all the banks in the world, where they've been hacked. They've been hacked and hacked and hacked. And now people are starting to feel that they're not as cool and as safe as they thought they were in their transactions. I think Bangladesh lost $101 million that were hacked out of their accounts. And I think Nepal just lost $8 million last week. So what are they going to do? Nobody knows. If you hear about Uber, and Uber's used a lot, I haven't used it, but a lot of my friends have, Uber has now made an agreement with NASA to work on flying cars. I'm telling you, they're coming. So they just got together, and now they're going to put their heads together to make flying cars, okay? And as we said, DeLorean already has theirs, and there's about 4 other companies that have theirs. And the last little piece of news is that our prayers and our thoughts are with Texas. You know what happened there. For me, I get very angry because I feel that the people who have the power to make certain changes are not willing to do those changes, and I feel the people who want the changes, which I think is a majority of Americans, seem to be powerless on this. And so we'll see. And it's always funny that when a foreigner kills Americans, there's always policy the next day. But when it's one of our own people who kills a bunch of people, nobody wants to talk about it because supposedly it's too sensitive. Everyone's mourning. The feelings are raw. And I think there's a very big double standard. And we need to solve this. It's like every week. We go to Vegas, we go to New York, now we're in Texas. It's really epidemic. It is. It's very epidemic. Our guests for today are not epidemic. No, 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 no. We have Caren Goldman with us, author Caren Goldman. We have well-known artist Mary Hubley with us. And sadly, this is a little piece of bad news. Our musical guest was Veranda Jazz with Mitch Colosaire, but he had a really, really serious medical emergency with a family member, and he had to fly out. And it was almost, a day and a half before the show. So he apologized. He doesn't have to apologize. Family comes first. Our prayers and our thoughts are with him. We hope to see him soon, and we hope everything's okay. So let's give him a hand, though he's not here, okay? Wish you the best, Mitch. All right. So when we come back, we're going to start talking with our first guest, Caren Goldman. We'll be back in a minute.
At St Augustine Distillery, we're part of a new generation of American craft distillers. Family-owned and operated, we are committed to making the best possible spirits using local agriculture. Our distillers make everything by hand, from mashing and blending to distilling and tasting each and every batch. We distill and bottle everything we sell, making sure that the spirits are just right before barreling and aging. Bottled by real people, we love showing our guests not only what we do, but why we do it. We're passionate about educating our guests to not only what goes into each bottle, but how to make the best possible cocktails. We love St. Augustine, and thanks to your purchases, we're able to give back to the community and help local organizations each and every day.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
St. Augustine Distillery, handmade with pride in the nation's oldest city.
At Martinez & Associates, we can help you with many things. Number one is income for life throughout your retirement, which is very important. Number two would be Medicare choices, which are very confusing. Number three is a legacy for your loved ones. And finally, keeping you independent throughout retirement. My name is Tuly Martinez. Call this number. Y hablamos español.
US1 Computer Works has been serving St. Augustine since 2002. We make repairs on all makes. Is your computer slowing down because of malware and viruses? Bring it to us, and if you can't come to us, we'll come to you. Do you need a wireless network at your business? Problems with your routers? Call US1 Computers. We're ready for the task.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with Caren Goldman. Yes. I'm so happy to have you on the show. I know you're in different facets of our community, but I wanted to talk to you basically about the part that you're a writer, and I think I found that much later as I met you and got to know you better. And I've been looking at some of your books, and they're very, they're just healers, okay? Your books heal.
Thank you.
I think your books also forces us to ask certain questions that probably, someone once said to me, you know the answers, you're just afraid of them, but you know the answer to the question. So for me is, when you think of your community growing up as a child, what would that community be? What place would that be?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. Okay. Whereabouts in Brooklyn?
A place called East Flatbush. Most people have heard of Flatbush. This was East Flatbush. And if I talk about Brooklyn for too long, my accent will come back in nice and strong.
A glass of water for a quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the Brooklyn accent. And so, your childhood was in Brooklyn, and how was your childhood in Brooklyn?
Very different than anybody's childhood today. Lived in a residential area where it was mostly single-family homes and that type of thing, and we had a tremendous amount of freedom.
In what sense?
Well, kids could go running out of the house and be crossing streets by the time they were about 4 years old. And I can remember by the time I was 6, 7 years old being able to cover an extensive area by foot. And by the time I was 8, 9, my friends and I were hopping on buses. The trolleys had gone away by then. And buses, and by the time I was 10, 11 years old, we would take buses to subways to get into Manhattan, and we'd be running around
Did Manhattan have that awe when you come into the center of New York City and see all those buildings and everything?
No, it didn't, because I thought that's what the whole world was.
Oh.
And it wasn't until I was much older that I discovered that there actually were tall buildings in other places in the country. It was really like that drawing where Manhattan was the center of the world and everything was flat after that.
Right,
so,
right. So now, how early can you feel that writing is going to be part of your life? You think?
I knew when I was 7 years old that I was going to be a writer.
Wow.
And the backstory to it was I was madly in love with Superman on TV. Superman, George Reeves, the original Superman. I thought Superman was second to God and all the wonderful things that Superman could do. And the thing that got in my way was Lois Lane. And essentially, if I became a really good writer, I could work for a newspaper, and maybe the newspaper where Clark Kent was in disguise, and just kind of push her out of the way and work with Superman.
The imagination of a child, huh?
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. He was exactly the hero I needed at that point in my life.
And so when did you start in writing?
When I was 7 years old.
Do you remember the kind of things you wrote about?
Like most children, I wrote stories about different things in the world around me, but I got the affirmation that I was really, really become a writer by my teacher in school. I had written a 7-page story, which was a lot for a 7-year-old.
I was going to say 7 pages.
And it was about Jim Newton and his brother Fig, and it was a Western.
Got it, Fig Newtons,
Yep.
And it was a Western.
And it was a Western.
Happy ending?
I don't even remember the story, but my other kind of hero was Roy Rogers. So it was a takeoff on all that.
Singing cowboy.
Yes, right.
Yeah, singing cowboy.
Yeah, the kid next door loved Gene Autry, but I was Roy Rogers.
And so now you're 7. Now you're moving into high school. And what are you doing in high school when it comes to writing?
Very much working on, at that point in time, creative writing, because I thought I was going to become a novelist. Everybody thinks they're going to become a novelist and all of that. And that's where I started to discover that newspaper reporters weren't novelists. And so I really had to start focusing on nonfiction and that type of thing. Right. So the usual kind of thing of writing for the paper or classroom assignments. I wasn't in a high school where there was really an opportunity to extend beyond that.
To explore that more, deeper. So now you go to college.
Now to go to college as a journalism major.
Wow. So you knew.
That's all I wanted to do.
Wow.
That's all I wanted to do. Wow. Had a very, very unique opportunity because I just applied to colleges that I was the first one in my family to be going off to college. And I just applied to colleges that had journalism departments.
Okay.
And not really knowing and not having a guidance department in the school that could really kind of sort that out. And I wound up at Ohio Wesleyan University because they had a journalism department. And it was only after I got there that I discovered it was actually the top journalism department in a small school. Oh. And it was, at that time, one of the only schools in the country that had an independent newspaper. So the university did not have any jurisdiction over the newspaper. The person who headed the department became a beloved, beloved mentor.
This is in Cleveland now?
No, this was in Delaware, Ohio.
Okay, this is in Delaware.
Yeah, but to get there, you had to go through Cleveland, and that was another affirmation that there were tall buildings someplace else in the country.
Another big city.
Yes.
That's funny.
And so it was a small department. There were only 7 of us. His reputation was amazing. He probably, other than a large university, had turned out more Pulitzer Prize winners, more people who had gone on to papers such as the Washington Post and New York Times and
it's like working with Yoda.
Yes,
Jedi training.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so from there, some graduate school and then on to the Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Oh, so you ended up in Cleveland now.
Yeah, because
it
had tall buildings.
Is this where the Superman thing takes place?
Yes, matter of fact, it did. You know, most of my writing career, as I look back on it over all of these years, and things that I've done besides writing, they're all threads. And your life is weaving a fabric, or it's creating these chapters in a book. And Joseph Campbell at one time talked about the fact that when we go through that book again and look at all of the chapters, they seem like this is this one there and that one there and that one there, and those threads connect them all. They were all leading to that particular point in time that you're at right now.
So your life suddenly is a path that when you look back, you said, I created a whole path here without knowing.
Right.
Yes.
That was taking me exactly where I was supposed to be, doing what I was supposed to be doing. The interesting thing about the Plain Dealer, which I didn't know when I got there, was that Superman was created in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, that's why.
And basically, it was created in the 1930s. And the people that I was working with, the elders, if you will, of the newsroom, and it really was the old newsroom.
Old school there.
Yeah. The elders of the newsroom had been some of the people who were the actual characters in the comic strip at one point or another. And that was just amazing.
That is like omen stuff.
You know, that my city editor at one point was Perry White. And the only thing that wasn't there was Superman and Lois Lane, but that was, you know, childish things that you put aside.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it must be so surreal in so many ways.
But it's also one of those threads. You don't know how you wound up there.
What do you think you learned there the most?
At the Cleveland Plain Dealer? It's a very interesting question. What I learned was I didn't want to be doing the kind of reporting that I was doing, and I got there as a rookie reporter, excuse me, and did what rookies did, and then began being mentored to do investigative reporting. Okay. And I was part of an investigative team that was doing some significant things. I had independently taken down a judge, and then I was on a team that was investigating a judge accused of murdering his wife. And it was a fairly large team. It was a very big story in Cleveland. And I had been given my assignment for the day and went out, and I came back and I said to the city editor, this track that we're on here isn't going anywhere. It's not going to produce something. And it wasn't what he said. It was the expression on his face. And in that moment, I knew that when you're doing that kind of investigative work, that if you weren't able to, in a sense, create the negative piece of it in some way or another, you had actually failed at what you were doing.
Wow.
And of course, once again, that was a whole different mindset and everything else for what's called investigative reporting today. But at that point in time, I had also been doing some freelancing. I had already written for national magazines, and I knew that what I wanted to be writing about were people who are making a difference in the world around me and way beyond that, and that they were doing it by being involved with things that were cutting edge. And so I wrote a lot about artists who were coming up and creating art that hadn't been done before in different mediums and all of that.
You. Now, when did you decide? You had told me there was a difference between being a writer and an author.
Yes.
You know, because you were being a writer for so long, and then I remember I asked you, well, what about being an author? You said, well, there's a difference. What's the difference between a writer and an author?
I learned the hard way. The first book that I ever did, I did for the founder of the largest holistic center at that time in the world, a place called Omega Institute, highly respected. And I was doing a lot of freelance writing about all of the things that were emerging in terms of yoga and alternative medicine and all of those things, some of which were at one time called New Age, quite appropriately, and then that became kind of a pejorative way of talking about any of that. And so Dell, the publishers, we're going to be putting out a series of books with the Omega Institute book of yoga and meditation and all these things. And they came to me and asked if I would do the book that basically captured everything that the founder had been involved in. So it was this sweeping book that covered all of the new healing arts and whatnot. And of course, his name went on the cover, and my name appeared in 4-point print on the inside page. And I said to my agent, well, I'm still an author, right? And she said, no, I hate to tell you, you're not an author till your name is on the cover.
Oh, and so then you became an author. And here are some of the books. I want to show these to the camera. So now when did you then decide, this is what I'm going to do? And let's put it to the camera so they can see. There are many more, but these are two. So now you come and you decide you're going to be an author. My name is going to be on the book. And the first book you wrote?
The first book I wrote was Healing Words. And it's Healing Words for the body, mind, and spirit. 101 words to inspire and affirm. And it's one of those books that you just open to any page, right? And the reason that I wrote this book was I had been writing about alternative healing and the interface of allopathic medicine, traditional medicine, these new healing arts, and spirituality with some religion thrown in as well. And then in 1999, I got breast cancer.
Wow.
And I had been doing all this writing for years, telling people exactly what they should do and all of that. And I had never been sick, period.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I found myself in a wilderness that was very, very different. And when I came out on the other side, fortunately, caught very, very early and everything else, I knew that another book did not have to be written telling patients what to do.
Okay.
And what was really needed was something that could help an individual, whether it was cancer, whether it was drug addiction, alcoholism, any of the chronic diseases,
crisis,
depression, every bit of it, to be able to help them in a situation that literally felt completely out of control.
Okay.
With everything around them controlling it or trying to control them.
Right.
And
that's what's scary about it.
Right, in a very holistic way, be able to give them a sense of self-control. And that's what this book was intended to do. That's what this book actually did. The endorsements that I got from big star writers in the field out there at the time just actually amazed me. I felt so blessed.
So it was a hit, like they say. It was a book that really filled in a vacuum, something that was really needed.
When it was translated into, a Japanese publisher picked it up, and the only thing that I could understand was my own name, for one thing.
Oh, Caren Goldman.
Exactly, exactly. And so I did several books that have that theme, and then not the last one that I did, which interestingly was for Rodale Press, which also puts out Prevention Magazine and lots of other magazines. They needed a definitive book on breast cancer, and they came to me. So it really is that book I never wrote back then in terms, but all of the experience made it more of a user-friendly book for breast cancer patients because it incorporated all of the how do you get control from the time you're diagnosed.
Right, because it's so scary you lose control. But you have another book here, because we're running out of time. And you have here, it's called Restoring Life's Missing Pieces. What can you tell me about that book?
Well, the subtitle is The Spiritual Power of Remembering and Reuniting with People, Places, Things, and Self. And this book was one that I pondered for a long time. I didn't really know that I was pondering it until I was on Facebook one day and basically started asking questions about what is it at one level that is driving people to reconnect the way they are on Facebook. And then ask myself, well, you know, it's superficially, you know, I don't go to reunions, so I write a book about reunions. But took it to the next level. And aside from catching up, what's the real reason that people have this desire to be doing that? And then what's really the reason? And what I've discovered in the course of writing this was that what's really the reason is that we have to be in relationship with other people. By nature, I'm an introvert, but my world has no meaning until I relate to other people in the world. And as we go through life, from the time that we're a very small child, we, in a sense, what a shaman would say is we lose pieces of ourselves. We have soul losses, whether it has to do with moving somewhere, or a child who comes from an abusive home who's lost a voice, or all these other things. And getting to the real underpinning of what that means to people and how it is that they can go through life and start to reclaim those pieces at another level. That going back to visit the childhood home has much more meaning than just seeing it again. It restores something to us that helps us to feel more whole as we finally start to go on that pilgrimage that takes us to the final place that we're going to be.
Someone said we're a beautiful complication.
Yes, we are.
And I think that's a great way to describe it. Love to have you again.
Thank you.
This is great.
Thank you so much.
Keep writing, keep inspiring us, keep giving us hope. Yes. And where else could we find your books? We were looking for other titles.
All of them are on Amazon, of course.
There it is. Go to
I think they're
Amazon,
still
put Caren
on
Goldman.
Barnes & Noble also.
Wow.
And
well, we're so happy to have you here on the show, and to be part of our community is awesome. Thank you again.
thank you again.
Awesome. Yes. After these messages, we'll be back with our next guest, Mary Hubley. Yeah.
My name's Dana. I own Sweet City Cupcakes, and we're located at 233 West King Street. We specialize in custom cakes and cupcakes. We use fresh and local ingredients and bake fresh daily. Each of our cupcakes is decorated with a unique look to complement the flavor. We have signature cupcakes such as the Marilyn, the Elvis, the I Love Lucy. We have a unique vintage look. Stop in and say hello. Have a cup of coffee and a delicious cupcake. Even better yet, take a box home to share with the family.
Our ingredients are mostly natural. It's palm oil, coconut oil, olive oil. We put cocoa butter, shea butter, and real silk in our soaps. also it's something that's pleasing to the eye and you enjoy using it. Come visit us at Antoinette's Bathhouse.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah. Our next guest, of course, is Mary Hubley. For those of you who don't know her, she is an artist here in town, and she has her studio right there on, what's that, Anastasia Boulevard?
Yeah, right on Anastasia.
Yeah, right on Anastasia. So happy to have you.
Thank you.
Seen your work, love it.
Thanks.
And so I'd ask the question for you is, where are your roots? What is your community? Where were you, where was your childhood, kind of the place where it all happened?
Well, I grew up outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So I went to school in Abington, Pennsylvania, and I did weekends and summers in Ocean City, New Jersey.
Oh,
Ocean
City.
Yeah, so you know, I kind of roamed anywhere from Lancaster through the Pine Barrens and all the way to the seashore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so, would you say your childhood was fun? Was great?
It was great. It was unusual. My mother was an artist, and she had all these wackadoodle artist friends too.
Okay.
And I mean, I have that now. But she had a great band of compadres.
Okay.
And we do a lot of art. We do plein air painting before it was called plein air painting. You know, we'd go out in the Pine Barrens and paint for the whole day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how old do you think you were when you started gravitating towards the crayons and the paint and all that?
Right away.
Really?
I mean, I was so little, you know, I probably grabbed those crayons from my brother and just started doing it. So I don't remember a time when I wasn't doing art.
Because there's a story of Picasso where he's a little boy and his father is painted, and his father is painting something on the roof of the house in Spain, and there's an emergency where they call him, and the father leaves, and Picasso sees, you know, the whole thing his father left with paint, and he painted. And when his father came back and saw what Picasso had done, he never painted again. He gave them to Picasso.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. And I'm
wow.
like, what could have
That's
that?
neat.
Like someone said a saxophone player once played so well, the other guy just threw his in the river.
Oh, I didn't have that.
So no, it's interesting that so young you were around. Now, was your father artistic also?
He was artistic. He had a big drawing table, but he was an engineer. So he created
his
machinery and drawing, but he was drawing all day, every day. That's
He's the kind of guy who draws and then sees movement in his head.
Yeah, he was kind of a genius. He was pretty amazing. And so between the two of them, it was always art. My grandparents, my mother's mother was an artist. My mother's mother's mother was an artist.
Wow.
They were involved in the arts
That's
and
in the
crafts
DNA.
movement. Yeah, back in the 1920s, they were in the arts. So they did pottery back in the 1920s.
So now here you grow up, and now you go all the way to high school.
Right.
Are you still painting and drawing and doing all that in high school?
Yeah, big time. I was, you know, when I got to high school, so my mother was a watercolorist, so I got a real good background in the watercolor and the painting. When I went to high school, that introduced me to a whole other world of pottery and printmaking.
Pottery is great.
I mean, yeah, the wheel.
It takes a lot of strength.
Yeah,
I
you
never
build your
realized
muscles
that
up.
till I started playing with pottery, and I said, wow.
Yeah, it's
You could-
great.
yeah.
So I did printmaking, and I constantly. You know, we had a print sale in high school, and people would come buy the students' work, you know, I don't know, $5 a piece, whatever. I would sell out during those print sales.
Wow.
I would. So, I mean, they were really, I did large pieces.
What was the theme on them?
I did boats in high school. I was into boats.
But
so
you still draw boats?
Yeah, I still do boats, but that was printmaking, and now this I'm
different,
doing oil painting these days.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you would say your main medium now is oil?
Yeah.
You spend your time around oil?
Mostly oil. I'll do acrylic, but it's really mostly oil.
Do you think oil is your favorite?
Yeah.
After experimenting with so many different things?
You know, I like oil because the consistency's buttery, versus acrylic, where the consistency is a little
that
watery.
smell of oil.
It's
very,
just so earthy and
yeah,
beautiful.
It's very
but I can
distinct.
paint with either one. It's the same process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at your paintings, okay, Picasso went through a blue period, then he went through a rose period, and then if you look at Van Gogh, you see a lot of yellow and orange, and then you'll find some other artists where the cobalt blue is really thick. Do you think when you look at your work that there's that one color that keeps popping up, popping up? See, when I was a kid in school, orange. I couldn't get enough orange. All my crayons would be like this. My orange crayon would be like that. You know?
Oh, yeah, I do that though. I go through different periods. I guess about 15 years ago, I was going through my orange period. Yeah, I did a lot of orange back then. And you know, I came back to it recently too, a little bit of orange. You know, so purple and orange are like my favorites, but they're not as sellable, the purple and orange. So I've got, you know, I'm a commercial artist, right? I have to sell, but I love all colors, so it's not that big a deal. I still put a little purple and orange in my paintings, but I'll do a lot of earth colors. I'll do a lot of blues. I just did a big butterfly that's all blue and green.
Okay, so let me ask you, your mother's themes, what were they mostly?
She did landscapes.
Lots of landscapes?
Yeah, and local kind of front porches and things like that,
It's almost like black and white photography, you know, in a way. You do a black and white landscape, then you'll do a porch or a bicycle park.
That was her thing. She did the porches and the bicycles, that kind of thing.
And when we look at your paintings, are they also landscape?
I do a lot of landscape, and that's what I sell in the bigger galleries, or landscapes. I'm kind of known for that. I'll do, you know, children at the beach. That's another small themes, but I do them very small. Landscapes, I get very, very large. You know,
how
like,
large are we, when we say large, what are we talking about?
4 feet by 4 feet.
Wow.
They're pretty large. You know, I'll go even larger than that if a client needs something even larger.
My mom is about 4 feet. You could stand in front
so
of the picture
it's like, there's a bigger than
hey,
your mom.
she's in the picture. There's someone in there. I mean, she's very tiny.
Yeah.
But so now, did you go to school, once you left high school, did you go to college saying I'm going to major in art or something like that?
Nope. Nope. Because all of my mother's artist friends said, "Don't you let her go take art in school. Don't you let her do that.
It'll ruin her.
It'll ruin her. She'll never be able to make a living."
That's funny.
But I kept doing my art. So I went into the corporate realm for a few years, and I finally did get my college degree, but it took me a couple years, and I did it while I was working.
Oh, wow.
But I worked for corporations, RCA and McGraw-Hill, and I did illustration for RCA for a long time. Yeah.
So it was still within your world. You were doing illustration. I guess the only thing is that you're limited now to what they want versus I can draw whatever I want. So they're perimeter.
A little frustrating, but I'll tell you what, in the beginning it was frustrating, but after a while you just say, okay, I need to do a dragon with 3 heads that have little balloons coming out to talk about, you know, whatever, and sure I can do that, you know, or you need me to do an office of people sitting around a table, an illustration of that, sure I can do that. So it made me a lot more versatile.
And now, were you doing your art on the side though? Like
I was.
On weekends and the evening?
Painting on the side, but other stuff too, you know.
Were you still doing landscapes at that time, or being in...
I was. At that time, especially early on, my mother and I would still go out and do plein air painting together.
That's
it was really nice. So we'd go out and paint porches together or whatever.
Wow. So when did the time come when you say, now I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to have a gallery, a studio, and really push this career, or whatever you want to call it?
It's kind of happened hand in hand. I think we moved to St. Augustine in '97.
Okay, that was
so I was still doing corporate work, but I was doing it from my home office, right? So it gave me the freedom to do my corporate work at night, and I could go out during the day and do my art. So I guess it's since about '97 that I really got serious, and I started getting into galleries back then.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. And what do you think are some of the comments you hear from people? Because I guess artists do get a connection sometimes with someone who buys a piece of art.
Yeah.
I've worked in the galleries in Maui, and I find that many artists have customers who keep coming back to buy art. But they have this communication. What do you think is the thing you hear, the most common thing you hear about your art?
People say it's soft.
Okay.
It's soft, yet it's dramatic at the same time.
Huh. Your art,
Yes.
people say it's soft and
Yes.
it's dramatic.
Yes.
And how would you interpret that then?
Well, it's many years of training to figure out how to get drama.
Okay.
So if you look at a lot of exhibits, you know, all the art looks a lot like everyone else's, especially the amateur art. But when you get more and more and
People
more,
who've been at it for
a long time, you know, you kind of understand how to add drama. So rather than have a horizon line right in the middle of a painting, I raise my horizon line to way up high, and it gives it drama. You know, it's a little different.
Oh, wow.
So, and the soft, it's just the touch of the brush. You know, you do a hard line, maybe one brush stroke here next to it, like white next to black, but then you kind of soften that line. So.
Okay, and when you think of artists that you like, that if you've seen through your life and you've seen their work, what are some of the artists that come to mind?
John Singer Sargent's one of my favorite. He did turn of the century artist, last century, who did portraits, and the people were all in black, and you'll see his work up in the Metropolitan. I'd go to the Metropolitan every time I visited New York, and that would be my first exhibit, John Singer Sargent.
Wow.
But Van Gogh, he's such a master, so much expression.
A master and a very troubled individual. But no, I mean, when you look at many artists, if you look at Tennessee Williams, if you look at so many artists, Miguel Pinheiro in New York City, their lives are, you don't want their lives.
No.
But somehow the creativity that comes out of them, it's almost like their art is their medicine, you know, or it keeps them from exploding.
Right. I mean, coming up in a family of artists, they were crazy. I mean, that house was amazingly, it was fun as a child, but I can see the turmoil, and that is a little bit of medicine to do in your art.
And when that doesn't do it anymore, then you hear they're gone. It's kind of sad. So what do you see your art in the future? When you think now, all right, 10 years from now, what would you hope?
Just to keep doing it, you know. I hope I'm healthy enough.
There's a Mary Hubley in every home.
That would be great. Wouldn't that be awesome? Just to keep doing it. I'm really out for the enjoyment of the whole thing. Sure, I need to sell my work, and I love selling my work.
Right. There's a part of the artist
But it's just really, you know, it's part of my heart, and I just need to create.
And do you think your theme will ever change, or you think you'll stay in landscapes?
It changes. Landscapes are something I'm doing now, and I love doing landscapes. I like getting out in the open air and painting outside. But I also like doing little children at the beach. So I go back and forth, and then, you know, I do little critters, woodland critters, and, you know, different types of things. I love doing bouquets of flowers.
Do you have a website?
I do.
What is it?
It's maryhubley.com.
Oh, that's so easy.
Isn't that easy?
You know, Hubley is Hubley.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. We'll call you Hubley to give you a fragrance of French. But we'd love to have you again. And yes, if you haven't seen her art, see her art. I was in her gallery. It's wonderful. And we thank you so much for having you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the artist. Yeah. And next week we'll be back. We'll be at the amphitheater, the back room of the amphitheater. Please park in the front of the amphitheater. We have someone who will take you to where the show is going to happen. We have wonderful guests like we had tonight. And once again, we hope that Mitch Colosaire is doing fine and that everything's working out. And so we will see you again next week, same bad channel. Thank you.